Call or visit a Spectrum store today.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Good morning, I'm Bree Driscoll, and here's your Spectrum News in 90. An Arctic blast could bring potentially record-setting cold to the U.S. this week, coming just days after historic flooding hit much of the South. At least 10 people have died from the severe weather, including 8 in Kentucky. Virginia, Indiana, and Tennessee are also recovering from floods. Negotiations between the U.S. and Russia about the conflict in Ukraine are set to begin tomorrow in Saudi Arabia. President Donald Trump confirmed Sunday that Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky will be involved. Saudi officials say they plan to play a key mediation role. A Kremlin spokesperson says the talks could signal a big change is about to take place in relations between the U.S. and Russia. Family members of Israeli hostages who are being held in Gaza gathering in Tel Aviv today to mark 500 days since the October 7th attack. This as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is vowing to, quote, finish the job against Iran. The Prime Minister says he and President Trump are working in full cooperation and coordination. Race car driver William Byron won his second straight Daytona 500. His win came after multiple weather delays, including one that lasted 3 hours. A crash on the final lap wiped out multiple contenders, catapulting Byron from 9th to 1st place. Now he is the first back-to-back winner of the race since Denny Hamlin in 2019 and 2020. That's your Spectrum News in 90.
Hello, everyone. Meteorologist Scott Dean with your Weather on the Ones forecast as we kick off the work week. We say goodbye to one storm system pulling away from the East Coast, and now we turn our attention to a new one that's going to be forming in the plains moving eastward. Bitterly cold air has settled in the northern plains into the Midwest with highs below 0 and single digits over towards Chicago. Over towards the West Coast, some rain over towards Seattle.
I'm Bree Driscoll, and thanks so much for joining us here on Spectrum News. Today is Monday, February 17th. Happy President's Day. Potentially record-setting, historic, and deadly. Just some of the words being used to describe the back-to-back storms hitting the U.S. Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, and Virginia are among states ravaged by flooding. Virginia emergency workers completing search and rescue missions. At least 10 people are dead, including 8 in Kentucky, where Governor Andy Beshear applauded life-saving efforts across the state.
Thankfully, our first responders, our National Guard, our Kentucky State Police have now rescued more than 1,000 people, and they're out there doing a great job. We're grateful for them.
And now Kentucky is expected to face the brunt of a wintry mix and bitter cold temperatures. Our Jenna Enoch has the story on the new system making its way through the country.
Record-setting cold temperatures set to hit the U.S. this week. Wind chills could hit -50 by the Canadian border and below 0 in parts of Texas. But this is just part 2 of a horrific storm that hit over the weekend, killing at least 10 people. One of the victims was a child.
It's saving as many lives as we can. It's positioning our assets, our swiftwater boat teams, not just where flooding is happening, but where we know it's coming.
Kentucky has the highest death toll from the weekend storm. Video showing several states flooded, homes, businesses, vehicles, and roads submerged. Emergency crews performing more than 1,000 rescues in 24 hours.
We'll move from the rescues themselves to going door to door in the flooded areas to make sure that everyone is okay.
Other states like Virginia, West Virginia, and Tennessee are also recovering from floods. Officials report hundreds of power outages from the weather as more dangerous winter weather rears its ugly head. Jenna Enoch, Spectrum News.
We're joined now by meteorologist Scott Dean. Scott, devastating flooding in several states and now record-setting temperatures and a wintry mix impacting some of the affected areas. How much worse is the situation going to become in these states?
Well, I tell you what, Mother Nature is not giving these folks a break. We still have those flood warnings left over from that rain. And basically what happened is the rain just trained over the same areas for an extended period of time. And some of this rain was very heavy, and that caused catastrophic flooding. Now we turn our attention to the Arctic air that's going to be plunging southward into the Midwest. That's going to give us some dangerously cold wind chills in the plain states down into the Midwest, where many areas are going to feel like it's going to be well below zero, taking us into Wednesday morning, including those areas that were affected by the flooding. And not only that, we're looking at another storm system that's going to be heading into those same areas. This time, it's going to be a frozen variety. So unfortunately, it looks like things are going to get worse later on.
Yeah, no relief in sight. Scott, thank you very much. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is sounding the alarm about Russian President Vladimir Putin's intention to attack NATO. President Donald Trump says he does not think that's a possibility. This comes amid efforts to finally bring the three-year war to a close. Spectrum's Daniel Grimes has the story.
In the coming days, 3 top aides in the Trump administration are set to meet with Russian officials to bring 3 years of death and destruction to a close. On Sunday, just days after an extensive call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, President Donald Trump said he believes Putin wants to stop fighting and suggested he could meet with the Russian leader again soon.
We're trying to get a peace with Russia, Ukraine, and we're working very hard on it. It's a war that should have never started.
While the president downplayed Russia's ambitions to attack NATO members, Ukraine's president is intensifying his rhetoric. In an interview that aired Sunday morning on NBC News, Volodymyr Zelensky called Putin a liar and raised concerns that he won't stop with trying to conquer Ukraine. He warned Putin will attack Poland and other NATO members. He also addressed a broader concern among Europeans that President Trump will shut Ukraine out of negotiations and make major concessions that favor Russia simply to end the war.
I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine. Never.
President Trump said Ukraine will play a role before any deal is finalized, confirming what Keith Kellogg, the administration's Russia-Ukraine envoy, said Saturday. Kellogg said Europeans, though, will not have a seat at the negotiating table. Still, Zelensky is not losing faith in the U.S. president.
I believe and trust only in real steps, and I trust President Trump.
President Trump also appears to be dashing Zelensky's hopes of eventually joining NATO. Now, Ukraine has been seeking NATO membership since long before the war. President Trump said he doesn't think Russia would allow it to happen, and that's something Zelensky conceded is likely true. In Washington, Daniel Grimes, Spectrum News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is vowing to, quote, finish the job against Iran. The prime minister says he and President Trump are working in full cooperation and coordination to end Iran's terror axis.
We have a common strategy, and we can't always share the details of this strategy with the public, including when the gates of hell will be opened, as they surely will if all our hostages are not released until the last one of them.
Family members of Israeli hostages being held in Gaza gathered in Tel Aviv today to mark 500 days since the October 7th attack. Relatives came together outside the American embassy to call on President Donald Trump to help assure the release of all the hostages as soon as possible. The Trump administration is taking more steps to downsize the federal government, this time at the Federal Aviation Administration. The union representing the workers said hundreds of probationary employees who maintain critical services with air traffic control are being let go. They could be barred from accessing FAA facilities as early as tomorrow. The move comes less than 3 weeks after a mid-air collision between a helicopter and plane killed 67 people. That crash highlighted shortages of air traffic controllers and problems with the agency's infrastructure. The U.S. DOJ service said it plans to make rapid upgrades to the air traffic control system. Still to come on Spectrum News, the struggles small business owners face after devastating wildfires in Southern California.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times, powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app.
Great news, Spectrum Internet customers. Now you can try Spectrum Mobile risk-free for a full year at no cost to you. It's easier than ever to switch. Bring your own device and we'll pay off your phone balance up to $500 per line. Spectrum Mobile brings you a reliable nationwide 5G network you can count on wherever you go. Plus, upgrade your phone anytime, as many times as you want, for any reason when you get Unlimited Plus. Call or visit a store near you. Our specialists are ready to help you switch.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back, everyone. Meteorologist Scott Dean on this President's Day as things are winding down across the east as the big storm system is pulling into eastern Canada. But on the backside of it, some snow showers and blustery winds creating bitterly cold wind chills. The southeast is quiet after a round of storms pushed offshore. And now we turn our attention to a new storm that's going to be forming in the Plain States. As we look at our Futurecast models, we take you through the afternoon. We're going to start to see some snow breaking out in the Plain States. Still some snow showers going on in New England. We turn our attention to this expanding area of snow across the plains, including Wichita. That's going to be moving eastward. Portions of Missouri could affect Kansas City and St. Louis, certainly areas to the south, and this will move off towards the east as we head into Tuesday evening with a band of heavy snow developing in portions of Missouri into Arkansas. That'll move eastward into Tennessee as we go into Wednesday morning, and then into the Carolinas with some snow and possibly some ice in areas of the Piedmont and into the coastal plains, something we're going to have to watch closely. Already we have winter storm warnings that have been posted for areas around Kansas City on southward and into southern Missouri and northern Arkansas, and those winter weather advisories have been issued farther to the east, and it's likely we'll see winter storm warnings posted farther to the east as well. So you can see this band of snow that's going to be developing across the plains into the Midwest, eastward through the Tennessee Valley and eventually into the mid-Atlantic region. Bitterly cold air has settled into the northern plains. Temperatures staying below zero for highs, and it looks like that cold air will be sinking southward. A high of only 5 above in Kansas City on Tuesday, as temperatures will be cold even in the southeast with that winter storm that's going to be moving to the east. Coming up, we're going to be talking more about that winter storm and the Arctic air, including what's going on along the West Coast. That's coming up in 10 minutes, so stay tuned.
Just joining us or heading out the door, here's a look at what you need to know. Negotiations between the U.S. and Russia about the conflict in Ukraine are set to begin tomorrow in Saudi Arabia. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky will be involved. An Arctic blast could bring potentially record-setting cold to the U.S. this week, coming just days after historic flooding hits much of the South. At least 10 people have died from the severe weather, including 8 in Kentucky. The union representing Federal Aviation Administration employees confirms hundreds of probationary employees are being let go. And that's a look at what you need to know. The Trump administration has halted the firings of hundreds of employees tasked with working on nuclear weapons programs. About 350 employees at the National Nuclear Security Administration were abruptly laid off last Thursday. The layoffs were part of a purge by the U.S. DOJ service that targeted about 2,000 Energy Department employees. The agency's acting director issued a memo rescinding the firings for all but 28 of the hundreds let go. With parts of Southern California now dealing with flooding and mudslides, the recovery from the devastating wildfires is now becoming even harder. Spectrum's Teralyn Wagner spoke with some business owners about the struggles they are now facing.
We've got needles, gloves, razors.
This bedroom has turned into a makeshift storage for the donations Isabella Livingstone has gratefully been receiving. A little under 2 years ago, Isabella achieved her dream, opening a tattoo parlor staffed with female and non-binary artists. Junebug Tattoo was located in Altadena on Fair Oaks in an older strip mall that also included Pizza of Venice, a liquor store, a small comedy space, and an art gallery.
So all of that is completely gone, and we were a tight-knit community of people, and it's really sad to know that we're not going to be together, for a very long time, if ever.
If ever depends on a number of factors, not the least of which is, will there be any clients? Dwight Ferguson is the owner of New Wave Barbershop on Lake Ave in Pasadena, just over the Altadena border.
It has been kind of a ghost town around here, and it's kind of sad to see because this was a lively community.
He lost his home in the fire, and while he still has his business has been incredibly slow, especially on a Saturday morning.
People were lined up sitting here waiting before the fires. Now look at it in here. Nobody's even cutting hair.
According to the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, over 1,800 small businesses were located within the burn zones, generating more than 11,000 jobs. The economic impact from the fires will be long-lasting and widespread. It's something that weighs heavily on Dwight's mind.
I've lost probably 60% of my business because most of my clients lived in Altadena. But I do plan on sticking it out. We are very resilient, and we will be here for the community because the community needs us and we need the community.
Even with his business suffering, he's been offering free haircuts and braiding for residents impacted by the fire. He also has a GoFundMe page and is looking for grant programs to help New Wave stay afloat. As for Isabella, she's keeping her hands busy, making bracelets for a fundraising concert later this month. She'd love to reopen in Altadena, but she thinks realistically, it'll be 5 years before that could happen, and she can't wait that long, especially since no one can predict what the city will look like.
Everything is just such a huge question mark, because there's a chance that everyone sells their house and it becomes a very different community.
In the meantime, she's found a new home for Junebug in Eagle Rock and plans to open in April. She's treating it like it could be a permanent move. But the old Altadena is inked on her heart. And if it comes back, she says, she'd love to go back too.
Race car driver William Byron wins the Daytona 500.
Checker is waving, and William Byron has won the 500 for the second year in a row.
Holy cow.
Holy cow, baby, let's go!
Quite the celebration there. As you heard it there, this was his second straight win in the illustrious race. His triumph came after multiple weather delays, including one that lasted 3 hours. Crash on the final lap wiped out multiple contenders, catapulting Byron from 9th to 1st place. He is the first back-to-back winner of the race since Denny Hamlin in 2019 and 2020. And President Donald Trump visited the Daytona 500. He led the cars around the track and issued a message of luck to all the drivers over the radio. Well, today we're celebrating President's Day. The federal holiday is held on the third Monday of February. It honors all those who served as presidents of the United States. And since 1879 has been the federal holiday honoring founding father George Washington. He, of course, served as the first U.S. president from 1789 to 1797. Today also commemorates President Abraham Lincoln's birthday, which was on February 12th. Just ahead, alarming new statistics about divorce, why researchers say it's now a major public health problem for children.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
When you know you can go anywhere because you have a connection that's built for everywhere. That's life unlimited. That's Spectrum.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Hello, everyone. Meteorologist Scott Dean with your Weather on the Ones forecast. We say goodbye to the East Coast storm, and now we turn our attention to another storm that's going to be forming, along with more Arctic air surging southward. That's going to create bitterly cold wind chills from the northeast all the way through the Midwest and into the plains. As the next storm develops, it looks like many areas are going to be experiencing more snow and ice, and that storm will be moving eastward into the mid-Atlantic. So here's what's left of the storm pushing into eastern Canada. On the backside of it, we do have snow showers going on in the northeast into New England with blustery winds and bitterly cold wind chills. Also looking at some rain and snow showers in the Pacific Northwest as a new storm system is going to be forming out in the plain states. High pressure to the north is supplying the cold Arctic air, and the moisture is going to start to react with that cold air, and that's where we're going to see a band of snow start to develop across the plains moving eastward into the Midwest. So places like Kansas City over towards St. Louis on down towards Little Rock, Arkansas are going to see some wintry precipitation, possibly some ice in Arkansas, but a band of snow, and some of it could be heavy in southern Missouri. That's going to be moving eastward into the Tennessee Valley as this area low pressure rides along the Gulf Coast. And as this moisture starts to react with the cold air, we'll see a mixture of snow and possibly a band of freezing rain and sleet in the Piedmont of the Carolinas into the coastal plain as this low wraps up along the coast and moves out to sea as Arctic high pressure builds in across the east, keeping us quiet as we end out the week, but very, very cold. Now, as we look at the snowfall potential, a few bands of heavy snow coming off the lakes, but here's the system that we're going to be watching with this band of snow pushing across the Midwest and over into the mid-Atlantic as we head into Wednesday into very early Thursday. And there could be some icing on the southern side of this in Arkansas, and then another area of icing that could become serious in portions of southeast North Carolina and maybe into South Carolina as well. Let's not forget the West Coast, because we have the possibility of several inches of rain along the Pacific Northwest with the latest Pacific storm, as the Arctic air will continue to plunge southward as we head through the next several days, and it is certainly going to be very cold in the east with those temperatures that are going to be very cold, highs below zero in the northern plains with single digits all the way south into Kansas City as the warm air is shoved all the way down into southern Florida.
New New studies by the National Institutes of Health and other top researchers are finding that divorce could lead to health issues for children later in life. Spectrum's Sydney McCoy reports.
Good morning. Hello. How are you?
In the infant class at Little Makers Academy in Raleigh. It's all fun, all the time.
They need to feel comfortable with me and safe in this classroom.
Teachers Mariela Castro and Lubna Sahali know the importance of childhood development, even at infancy.
I am very happy to be the first teacher in their life and introduce all of them in the first level of education.
Children are sponges, soaking up what's going on around them. UNCG professor and Human Development and Family Studies Department Chair Dr. Dina Phillips Swanson says when an event such as a divorce takes place in the child's home, it can alter the way kids establish relationships and identity.
To some extent, it's tied into the sense of trust, but also it helps shape their coping strategies. How will they learn to navigate challenges in life?
The National Institute of Health says children from separated homes may have more disruptive behavior, anxiety, and overall health issues. New studies show children who were not abused are over 60% more likely to have a stroke over the age of 65 if their parents divorced when they were 18 or younger.
If the stress is prolonged, it then begins to have a negative effect on the body. And if it's not addressed, the body can begin to break down.
The study done by researchers from the University of Toronto, Tyndale University, and the University of Texas at Arlington say while there's no direct link to why, biological factors such as stress, altering hormones, and social factors like stigma are key players.
Not only are they dealing with family, but they're dealing with how their social networks are viewing them. If they don't have skills on how to deal with that, that follows them into adulthood.
Which is why every song, step, and smile could mean more to Castro students than she knows.
Thank you for being in my class, and I'm so happy to be having here.
Our thanks to Sydney McCoy for that story. Pope Francis remains hospitalized this morning with bronchitis, but is showing signs of improvement. The 88-year-old pontiff first contracted the illness last week. Vatican says he will not lead prayers as he usually does this Sunday, but has prepared text for publication. Saturday Night Live celebrated its 50th anniversary with a 3-hour special last night. The sketch comedy show premiered nearly a half-century ago on October 11th, 1975. Since then, it's launched the careers of countless comedians like Bill Murray and Eddie Murphy. The evening included cameos from Meryl Streep, Jack Nicholson, and Keith Richards. Paul McCartney, Lil Wayne, and Miley Cyrus were among the night's musical guests. The show's musical legacy also had its own night with a Radio City Music Hall concert on Friday. I'm still trying to get tickets to that one, maybe in the next 50 years. I'm Bree Driscoll. Thanks so much for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after the short break. Stay with us.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
The future is here with Spectrum Mobile and the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra with Galaxy AI. Do more than ever before by handling multiple tasks with a single ask through Google Gemini. And start the day smarter with Now Brief, insights that keep you ahead. Power it all with the fastest wireless speeds from Spectrum Mobile. Order the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra with Galaxy AI from Spectrum and get $700 off with trade-in. And now Spectrum Internet customers can try Spectrum Mobile risk-free for a full year at no cost.
Sometimes in life, in order to move forward, it helps to look back, to learn from the pioneers and trailblazers,
to gain inspiration from those who came before us.
To show us what it means to act with empathy and to show that love has no labels.
Join WWE and Love Has No Labels throughout the year in celebrating people from all communities and heritages.
Because when love has no labels, that's a love we can all fight for.
Women are bad with money. That's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now we've got something to say.
Save it. It's time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Until we're no longer 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
Save it. The falsehoods, the feelings of fault.
Then, the funds. Learn how to save for your retirement at wesaysaveit.org.